to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you'll rise for the invocation by Councilman Henderson.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all things, all provisions, and all your gifts. We ask that you clear our minds so that we may deliberate soberly about the issues before the city of Seaford. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Standing for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reminder, we will have executive session tonight following our regular meeting. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
The only change I'm going to suggest, Mayor, is since the minutes for the September 27th meeting are not loaded up for council, we'll bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay, do we need a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're asking to do is move the approval of the minutes from September 27th meeting to our next city council meeting. I have a...
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to postpone the approval of the minutes of the council meeting held on September 27th to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Santos, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, I want to take the liberty, it did not make it onto our agenda tonight, but I want to go ahead and take time to celebrate the 100th anniversary of our Frederick Douglass Elementary School. We have Principal Lovely here tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation for you, and then she's going to come up and share some things that are happening this weekend. The tribute states, the city of Seaford is proud to acknowledge significant milestones for respected institutions that we have improved the lives of our citizens and enriched the fabric of our great city. For the past 100 years, the Frederick Douglass School and all those who have passed through its halls have witnessed the changing tides of our community. In times of hardship and great prosperity, this institution has remained steadfast in its commitment to educating Seaford's youth. Named after the great abolitionist, orator, and writer, the Frederick Douglass School has held true to its namesake principles of equality and desegregation efforts in 1966. These efforts allowed for growth and greater inclusivity for our school district and provided support and opportunities for countless Seaford residents. The school has remained a pillar in our community and stands as a reminder of our continued resilience. With that, I, David C. Genshaw, Mayor of the City of Seaford, by virtue of the authority vested in me and joined by this City Council and all of our citizens, do hereby congratulate Frederick Douglass Elementary School on this centennial anniversary. So I'm going to invite Mrs. Lovely up now.
Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here to represent the Frederick Douglass staff and community. We've been planning this birthday bash for about 6 months. It's Saturday. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. It's from 10 to 2. Everything's free. We're going to have outside games. Our Seaford School District food truck will be there serving pizza. We have entertainment in the gym. We have Peruvian dancers coming. We have the high school band and cheerleaders, and our Frederick Douglass students will also be singing the school song, as well as some other entertainment. The best part of the day is we have created a 100-year timeline, so we've literally traced back 100 years. We have a graduate from the class of 1946 coming to speak, and we have a graduate from the class of 1959 coming to speak. And it's been quite a joy to trace back the last 100 years of a wonderful school for some awesome children. So thank you for tonight. You're all welcome. If you have, I know it's Apple Scrapple weekend, but you can come to us for a little bit and on your way maybe to Apple Scrapple, but we'd love to have you there. And you're always welcome any day to come to the school and see the great things we do there.
I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you, too, for your work there in our school district and the awards you've brought to them and the change in atmosphere and culture that you've brought there. We really celebrate the good work you've done along in these 100 years. So I think we should give a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right, next we have public comment. Is anyone here for public comment tonight?
Yes, we have Mr. Dan Cannon.
Mr. Cannon, will you come up to the mic, please?
Seaford's fetal remains legislation, called Ordinance 8.9, has passed from cradle to grave. However, the consequences of its passage remain undisclosed. One of the primary consequences for taxpayers centers around the undisclosed financial costs associated with the ordinance. As a pointed example, the Court of Chancery determined that, quote, the state prevailed and is therefore entitled to an award of costs from Seaford, the losers of the suit, unquote. However, this award of costs remains undisclosed as one of the many pieces of the entire cost of promulgating the aborted ordinance. These costs have been incurred primarily, but not exclusively, by Seaford solicitor Dan Griffith and/or his associates. Presumably, all this began with Mayor Genshaw initiated and Griffith carried out search for a so-called important issue for Seaford's mayor and city council to address. This cost us dollars. Even though the bulk of the initial 9/28/21 ordinance was lifted lock, stock, and barrel from Indiana, there was research by Griffith to vet the text, as well as to adapt it, poorly as it turned out, to the state of Delaware's unique systems of laws. This cost us dollars. Of course, the 9/28/21 initial presentation of the ordinance required Griffith's presence and testimony. Later, Griffith appeared for its 10/12/21 second reading, as well as its final passage on 12/14/21. This cost us dollars. Between Griffith's in-person appearances, there was legal work to examine, evaluate, and/or respond to communications from the DOJ, Delaware ACLU, and others. In addition, Griffith was preparing several amended versions of the original ordinance before the ordinance 12/14/21 final passage. This cost us dollars. After the 1/11/22 filing in Delaware Court of Chancery against the city by the state of Delaware, Griffith had to prepare for an expedited court hearing on May 12th. Of course, on May 12th, Griffith represented the city in the Court of Chancery hearing. This cost us dollars. Upon learning of Seaford's ignominious defeat in the 6/29/22 ruling by Vice Chancellor Laster, Griffith was quick to prepare the city's mostly false and/or misleading mea culpa, although this statement did accept the court's opinion, including its award of costs. All of this and more cost us dollars. As a citizen and taxpayer, I consider these undisclosed costs and the specific source of payments for these costs to be a matter of public record. Tonight I ask the mayor and city council for a commitment to release this public information to the public for its inspection, consideration, and evaluation as soon as possible.
Okay, do we have anybody else here for public comment? Okay, I just want to take a minute just to address some of those things that are said. I think we've been very open about Delaware Strong Families came alongside the city of Seaford and has paid that. We've been very open with that from the beginning. And it's always difficult when you spend money on issues, but I always pray that we have elected that are willing to take a stand for things that are morally right. I really do. This was something that was dealing with fetal remains, whether they died by natural causes or by the hands of an abortionist. And all the ordinance asked for is those remains be treated with dignity. That was it.
It was illegal.
And so we asked for that. They did rule that it is illegal, so now the remains will be handled by state law, which is they'll be thrown together, no matter what they are, what parts. They'll be double bagged in a red bag and incinerated. So yes, we lost for that. I pray we always have people that'll take a stand.
I'm afraid we'll have people who take the right
Okay.
stand.
Do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, we do
Is
not.
it, can I add
Okay.
something to this?
No, sir.
I'm sorry.
No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
I can't.
No, sir.
Add a comment to the public.
No, sir. Okay, we're going to invite up Mr. Kistler to initiate the help initiative.
So you're the only one that can speak.
That's correct.
Ask them, Brad.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, how are you? So, Mayor, Council, first, always a pleasure to be in front of everyone here. We got some good experience trying to bring quality of life to the residents of Seaford. We're here because we'd like to sort of brief you on what we're about to do in submitting an application to the federal side of HUD to be able to go after what I call a no-fund, a notice of funds opportunity to provide healthy home assessment, or healthy home type work, and lead remediation. It's roughly $2 million on the high end, $1 million on the low end, 42-month period of performance. And we sort of specifically identified Seaford because it's a hotspot. We have some real shortcomings in how children are tested for elevated blood levels exposed to lead-based paint in particular, but also just the living conditions and what we can do to help improve those. So we put together at least the initial phase of submitting this. We put our notice into the HUD people, let them know that we were about to submit. Deadline is October 18th. Now, there's only going to be 20 of these applications awarded. It's roughly $40 million. It's national in scope, so I'm not sure what our odds are, but we're going to do everything we can to secure that funding and be able to deliver it here. Okay, so now what we are asking, and what I did initially, is I just took all of those small sentenced items up there and just kind of identify them as the kind of things that we would look toward the city of Seaford as being able to support as a result of getting this contract award. And without going through and reading each individual one, this is no funding requirement, just in-kind resources to support this type of a contract award. Working with code enforcement, or working with the city in general to identifying where we know problem areas to be from a health perspective as well as from a code enforcement perspective. Okay? So here's the good news. You ready? So the good news, we already got partners signed up. We're excited to giddy up on this, right? So Sussex Environmental, they're going to do the assessments. They're the ones that just finished the assessment on the Seaford Police Department building. So they're familiar with the city. Tidal Health, right? So we got a partnership with them. Actually 2 agreements with Tidal Health to give us client referrals. Right now, respiratory-based, they've given us 8. We haven't even gotten the contract. They've given us 8 for us to be able to go out and remediate. So we already have funding through ARPA to be able to do healthy home assessments and the remediation that we find, even lead determination we have. Not a lot, but we have some funding. So we'll use that to substantiate why it's a compelling argument to fund the larger sense of what we want to do by providing matching funds from ARPA along with this HUD NOFA. Right? All right, so Sussex Environmental, Tidal, and Division of Public Health. That's the bingo. So the fact that they're writing us a letter of support tells us an awful lot about how the Division of Public Health can help us as well. Right? All right, that's our plan A. You ready for plan B?
Sure.
So plan B is, if we don't get this grant, if you're not aware of it, the empowerment people under Energize Delaware just released a grant worth, I think, $600,000, right? And part of that is going to the Sussex side of Habitat. The Sussex side of Habitat, to be able to do healthy home deep dive remediation work, right? So that would be a partner for us. So when we go in and do assessments, like the one that Mike Bailey just gave me for a home that is problematic and we can't do enough based on the funding and the scope we have, we can bring in Habitat to come in and also remediate that house in a bigger, more impactful way. It's all about partnerships in this business. This business is complicated. People in it are complicated. And so what we have to do is really learn who they are to the moral side. Learn who they are. I spoke with a woman today who was very, very angry and fearful of what was happening in her home. And in addition to that, I spoke to her husband. Who is in in assisted living. So just to try and understand how to remediate or how to identify the problem and correct it. All right. So that's our Plan A with the proposal Plan B. Should we not get that to partner and get Habitat to do more in the city of Seaford?
Let me just ask a question. Are we having a technical difficulty that the public's not hearing? Okay, we apologize to the
Oh, yeah,
public.
no.
If they're trying to listen, we want to make
You
sure
gotta
they
see
know
us in
we're
the
working
field.
on
We
it.
get a lot more distraction.
We run an extension cord, it can change everything, so just want to make sure we're okay.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. All right, so this is just a first pass, and I apologize, Trish, because the list I gave you wasn't, I got truncated with you, but this is just the first pass of what I think we will need to sort of work through in a relationship with the city in order to be successful either way. If we get this grant, hoo-yah. If we don't get the grant, then what we do is we work with Habitat and we pool all of our ARPA money to be able to make as big an impact as we can in the city. All right?
Questions? Councilman McCoy?
A couple questions. Just for my own education, the process itself, how does it work? Does the city contact you if we have residents who want to know more about the program? Do the residents reach out directly? Is there a form? How that works?
So two ways. You could do either one. So your code enforcement person reached out to me on Friday. And the day before, Thursday, the health person for police department reached out to me about the same person. And on top of that, that person, that resident could actually call our call center, which is the third way. Either of those three will work. Right? And then what we do is we make an appointment, we schedule, we make an appointment. A lot of times the people that are calling us or the information we get from code enforcement or from the healthcare side is not really the problem.
What if you have a situation where it's a tenant and they reach out versus say the landlord? How is that situation?
Depends on what the situation is.
Okay.
Right? So we need, this is another one of those line item issues here. If there's a problem with that property, let's say it's lead-based paint, and you got a child under 6 years old, and we test that child who's got elevated blood levels, that's a problem. We need to be able to talk to the landlord so that tenant doesn't get evicted because of that problem, right? And then that landlord, and there are stipulations on how to do that because I managed this program in the previous life. So there are ways to do that. But even if it's not lead, if it's another type of hazard, or 29 identified by HUD, then we would work as closely as we can with the landlord to get cooperation for them to act. They need to be able to do that in the best interest of the moral side of what we're trying to do.
Comment, I'm done. We go back a ways. I appreciate you guys. I really am thankful that you guys are choosing Seaford as an area to help us, help initiative like on Seaford Strong, now initiatives like this to help our residents, our community. So I'm very thankful you guys are doing that.
Yeah. I would have worn my shirt today, too.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Mr. Kessler?
Yeah.
Councilman Santos?
Let me think here. This is a question about cameras.
First I'd like to say thank you for what you're doing. There are a lot of homes in our area that are, here's some information for anybody that might be watching. Lead-based paint was banned in 1978, so if there are homes in Seaford that were constructed prior to 1978, the chances of it having lead paint are high. If they're built after 1979, then they should be good. So thank you for choosing Seaford. I did have a question. I was wondering if you might give us an update as far as the cameras that you came and spoke about.
So, so we're having a lot of fun with Chief Craig, right? And he's a lot of fun. So, we're working with him to identify, now beyond the lights, because it's a public safety initiative, beyond the lights is cameras, because then we can fill a lot of the areas that currently are not properly, or the resources are lacked to be able to provide video surveillance. So with the residents' approval, we could register your house in the camera, and if something was to happen criminally, then we could go back to that resident, ask for their permission, based on something we would officially get from the police department. Typically through evidence.com, we would get a notification. That would be our notification to request the film or the footage from that video. Now we've identified 3 areas within Seaford that could really use that technology. We just got finished doing a church in Dover, where we expanded an existing camera system and then put solar lights around, 20-some solar lights around this church. But that's exciting for us to do. Right? So the technology is wireless. It's typically only on the front of the house, and it's rechargeable, so we can either use solar if we have the exposure, or we're just going to have to put some kind of a maintenance contract in place, which we can do within a 3 to 6 month period to go and replace those batteries. Right? Our contract is good through December of 23, so we got a lot of stuff that we can do between now.
Other questions from Mr. Henderson?
Mr. Fisher, you mentioned 29 different airports for hazards that it's established. We know that, and thank Councilman Sanchez for reminding us that we have banned from 5 years. So, how do you want to prioritize? Because you have properties that are 178 before, but then you have other properties that have biological hazards. I don't want to use the word now, but there's biological growth that's going on in homes and other chemicals. There's other things that have that would make it dangerous or unhealthy for the people who do that. How are you going to go about getting a hierarchy or a priority list for how does that work?
Yes, that's a good question. So when we go in and assess any house, what we're looking for is the severity and likelihood of that particular hazard to cause harm to the occupant. And the level of severity changes depending on the hazard. So when we go in a home, we're never going to be able to remediate every hazard that's in the house. We just not going to be able to do it. So what we have to do is base it on the severity and the likelihood of harm. And so children under 6 with lead-based paint built before 78, that's a major problem. The first thing we would do is test those children. And we have money to buy lead analyzers for healthcare providers. And we have to get that money to give them these things to test them during flu clinics. That's children. So they're just not getting tested. We have a whole bunch of them out there that we don't know whether they've been exposed to this and affected them or not. So and we're certified to be able to do that when we go in. So the biggest ones, just so you know, the biggest ones are indoor air quality issues. That has to do with mold and pest infestation. And the second one is trips and falls. And in fact, we're working with Title, Boston Organization. So being able to get them to help us beyond respiratory, which is what they're giving us right now, to do other types of emergency room visits that are repetitive in nature. The only way to correct the repetitive cycle is to go correct the problem at the house. So that's the secret sauce, and they'll help us tremendously. So we're actually going to fund one of the FTEs that the Title is going to hire as a community health worker. going to fall under our jobs piece, which is the job czar is right there. But that's going to fall into that area, and that'll allow us to train that person to look through the same lens we do when it comes to identifying these hazards, so that we can become very efficient about at least eliminating the ones that are the most threatening.
I'm tickled to death to have the program, but what kind of concerns me is the liability issue. Suppose you identify hazards in your industry, the owner, if you have limited amount of funds, the owner, if you identify this, will the owner become liable for all the
Good question. So in the past, when I managed this program, absolutely. So the owner has to take an ownership responsibility for that property, and if there are elevated flood levels in children there, absolutely.
So that brings me to my final question. You mentioned testing for children. Is this a man-made thing, or is this an arbitrary thing? How are you going to be able to get the buy-in from the organization or your partner organization to do the testing of a minor crime?
So, first of all, it has to be done by someone who is trained and certified to do that. Capillary test versus a venous test. I learned too much over the last couple of months about this, but so you have to have someone who's trained on the side. So we're partnered right now with Westside Family Healthcare up in Wilmington to do flu clinics, and in addition to doing flu clinics is to test these children as a result of putting out an awareness brochure campaign. Right? But they're supposed to get tested when they come into the school system in the fall. That's part of the requirement. They're supposed to be getting tested. Right? But you want to talk about a liability. There's a concern about the water and how if there's any lead contamination in the water in the school system. Right? So it's a big problem that's kind of hasn't been directly, we haven't hit it head on. And I think at least with the children, we have a moral obligation to take care of these kids and relying on us. So we have the funding to get the analyzers. We can work with the healthcare providers, the daycare centers to do that in cooperation with the labs, LabCorp and Quest. But definitively, the only way we're going to get this started, we got to start.
Always welcome your efforts, since the beginning.
Has it gotten any trouble?
To make Seaford a healthy and safer place to live.
Yeah. It's all good trouble. Yes, all good.
Any other questions? Councilman Santos?
I'll say one more comment since we're on this subject for the children and anybody that might be watching. If you do have children and you live in a house that was constructed prior to 1978, the reason why you should be mindful is because the children are very likely to look outside the window and bite window sills, and there might be a fresh paint of coat that makes it so that that their teeth might be able to go past that layer of paint and maybe down to the layer of paint that has lead, and that can cause problems. So just if you do live in a house like that, just be mindful of your children.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, I will accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Mr. Charles Kistler with the HELP Initiative and permit the City of Seaford's participation in the Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Home Production Grant Program as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Santos. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Kane?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. As always, we love you guys here. You're a part of our community. We appreciate all you do. When the governor came down, he was excited you were here, and we are too. So thank you so
So
much.
are we.
Yep, thank you. All right, next we have the first reading of the Chapter 11. Mr. Beers is going to participate. Yes, yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So last meeting I came and requested that we change the methodology for billing water and sewer rates for out-of-town, out-of-city properties, customers. And this is basically just the formalities that we have to do now to make it into code. So I've never actually done this before, but I suppose I need to read the whole code.
So, council, they have in their package the actual language. So the first one is just section 11.7.6, which is actually in the sewer code, and it just states, it's simple, we'll read it. Sewer charges for users residing outside of city limits shall be 1.5 times the sewer rate published in the current City of Seaford fee and rate schedule approved by City Council. So that's the sewer side of it in the actual municipal code, and it revises the existing language that the director shared with you the last time. If council would like, I'll go on and go through the water section code change provisions. All right, that's new business number 3. It's very similar. Water charges for users residing outside the city limits shall be 1.5 times the water rate published in the current City of Seaford schedules of fees and rates approved by council. So as council is aware with the code change in the municipal code, this is the first reading. We'll take any feedback. We will bring it back for a second reading at the next council meeting, and then at that point, if there are no changes, council can adopt that, and we will then publish it. It'll become effective 30 days after publication.
Okay, are there any questions in regards to the sewer and water changes to people who live outside city limits? Okay, if not, then that'll come back through at the next city council meeting, correct? All right, and then next we have the approval revision of the fee and rate schedule for water and sewer rates.
So basically that, again, it's just establishing it in the fee and rate schedule. One part that I made in the recommendation last meeting also was to get rid of do away with we had a rate reduction for over, I forget what it is now, over a certain amount of water. I proposed to get rid of that so that you pay, no matter how much you use, you pay the same amount. I think we did that for one business years ago. That business is no longer here in the city. And if anything, with conservation, the way things are nowadays, you should probably pay more for the more you use. So we were kind of outdated in that methodology. So.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions in regards to that fee and rate change? Yes, sir, Councilman Henderson.
I have a question about the order of business. I mean, we haven't approved the ordinances yet. So why would we approve rates?
So the actual rate, if you approve it today, the effective date on page 1 would be January 1, 2023. So certainly we can delay this as well, but our thought process behind doing the fee and rate schedule, we would like to notify these customers as soon as we can so that they can plan for next calendar year. This change will start. We'll work with them. It's only a handful of customers. Most of them are residential. Some of them are commercial industrial customers. So we wanted to have this time period to get the information out to the public, to our users. But certainly we can wait until next meeting if council finally approves this code change.
So here's my philosophy about it is that if we submit this in the fee and rate schedule, it's going to appear that these two things are these two other two orders of business are just a formality, and we're not going to debate on them or anything.
Understood.
I have a little trouble.
And it's no problem. We can bring this back. What we wanted to do as staff was to basically tie it all together because the code change references. Mr. Mears wanted to show you the exact code language that will be included. But the effective date is quite a ways off. If council would rather hold off on approval of this, we can absolutely bring it back at the next council meeting with the code change.
Are there any? Yes, Councilman Corey.
If we deem that we want to delay it, we need a motion to delay it.
We need a motion either way. Yes, sir. So if there's no other questions, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to delay the implementation of the fee and rate schedule until after the second reading of the first new business 2 and 3.
Okay, we have a motion to delay this until next city council meeting, regular meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote on this one. Councilman Henderson.
Aye.
Councilman Holland.
Aye.
Councilman McCoy.
Aye.
Councilman King. And Councilman Santos.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll bring this all back next regular meeting. And next we have the bids.
Yep. So, budgeted approved in my budget this year was a vacuum excavator. So I went out to bid for that. I received 2 bids. One was from Vermeer, the low bidder, and then the second one was from Ditch Witch. I have made a recommendation to go with, unfortunately, the higher bidder, but he was the only one that met all the specifications, and the main one of having a local store service, which also included a service and parts department, is right here in Seaford. So I made a recommendation for the higher of the 2 bidders. It does put me over what was budgeted, because back when I got the estimate for the budget, just different environment back then. Everything's gone up, so unfortunately. So I am a little bit over budget on that.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Mears? Yes, Councilman Henderson.
Vernon, how was Vermeer deficient in that bid?
The main was the store. We required a store to be 30
Just
miles.
the 30 miles?
Yep.
No other specifications?
They did not have a tool rack on there which would hold the additional 50 foot of post. That's a minor one.
$200?
Yeah, it's a minor thing.
Any other questions for Mr. Mears? Yes, Councilman King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Burley, can you tell us the difference? I mean, Ditch Witch is here in Seaford. Can you talk a little bit about Vermeer for service, how far you have to take?
Sure, yep.
that piece of
So
equipment
it's
in order to get it
good
serviced?
question. So Vermeer, the local rep is in Annapolis, Maryland. So we would have to take it over the bridge for any kind of service or even parts. If I needed parts, I would order parts from there. So there'd be shipping costs, where here, all consumable parts they keep in stock, so I can go there and pick them up. Maintenance items, they're right here in stock. So I think over the long run, we'll.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make a motion to award the bid for the vacuum excavator to Ditch Witch in the amount of $64,079.41, and to approve a budget overrun of $8,079.41 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? Now we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King.
Aye.
Councilman McCoy.
Aye.
Councilman Holland.
Aye.
Councilman Henderson.
Aye.
And Councilman Santos.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Mears. Next, we'll have Mrs. Newcomer come up and go over the basketball program and some challenges.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As you're probably aware, we are approaching basketball season. The extremely busy time of the year for the department. We just kind of a little bit of background. We do co-ed basketball ages 6 to 13. Practices begin in December, so typically we would have October 1st would have been when we would put out our notice for registration, and then games run from January into February, sometimes wrap up in March. Monday through Thursday, with games being some games on Saturday mornings. We average 150 kids, and the facilities that we use currently are the Seaford Middle School, and then the overflow at the gym at Fred Douglass, the school that Miss Lovely is. So in past years, previous year, our rental for those gyms was $4,045, which is roughly $45 a day for a period of 90 days. We actually don't use it for those full 90 days, but that's what we pay for. We actually use it a little bit less. And the insurance that the city had was sufficient. So as we moved into our 22-23 year, the school notified us, that they were increasing the rates of the rental. So as you can see, the rental is now $75 a day, so that cost has gone up. And our insurance was no longer sufficient. So our superintendent of Parks and Recreation and our HR coordinator met with the school district. In fact, both insurance parties actually ended up having discussions regarding what our policies were, what they were requiring, and where it really needed to land out. Given that, we do need to increase or obtain damages to rented property premises, which would be $3,332 additional to what we've been paying, plus the amateur sports accident policy, which is another $1,309. So that gives us a total of non-budgeted expenses, an increase this year to run our basketball program of $7,346. There's just a little bit of a breakdown on the screen, as you can see. Our current charge is $45 per participant, and that would really just cover the cost, the new cost of the facility rental. If we were to increase that to $76 per player, that would only cost that would only cover the cost of the gym rental and the insurance. To cover all in jerseys, referees, sort of that break-even point, it would be about $107 we would have to charge per participant to cover that. So our superintendent of recreation did some research. They actually went and visited a few facilities to find out, what our alternatives are. Knowing where there are some gyms within the community, they reached out to Atlanta Road Alliance Church. They have a nice gym there, but unfortunately they can't commit to our 4 days a week because they have youth group and they have additional sports programming that occur there, so that facility is not an option. We reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, again, having a very nice gym, very convenient for the children in our area, but they too have additional program Monday through Thursday, so that doesn't work out. The last facility that we contacted was across Christian Academy, which is the former Seaford Christian Academy across from DeVelli's, if you're familiar with that. They do have availability, and we would have to work out some of the game schedule. It may have to change just slightly, and the cost to use that facility would be $3,000, and they would accept our current insurance as we have today. There would be some need to stagger the times because, as you know, the parking over there is not nearly as great as what we have now at the middle school. And I know that's probably a big change for this season. I know the department's excited and eager to get registrations up and running. I know they've had many people calling, asking already if registrations were available. So we wanted to provide the alternative options, but also wanted to ask for a budget overrun of this year to go ahead and use the school district, knowing that, or with the potential of next year that we may change locations.
Okay. Are there any questions in regards to our basketball program and reopening? Councilman McCoy.
A couple questions. I don't know specifics, but the weekday, 4 weekdays you would need the program. How many hours? How long is the program?
I'm going to ask Katie, our superintendent of recreation. I believe you guys, your practices are 2 to 3 hours an evening.
Good evening.
The maximum time that we typically use the facility would be probably 5:45 to about 8:45 p.m. Sometimes if we can, depending on the schedule, in the middle school we have started as early as 5:30 to have 3-hour practices.
The other question I had was just to clarify, if we choose to go with the motion for the budget overrun, then the children will be charged the original $45?
Yes,
Okay.
we have that there. We are not requesting a change in our, we just wanted to provide you with the breakdown just so that you could see what that actually does cover. Yes, it would still be the $45.
Thank you.
So the council's aware multiple calls were made with the school district and sit-downs to try to see if there was something we could work out to get through this year. And unfortunately, the demands of insurance coverage have changed, and they tried. Councilman King?
Thank you. Trish, is there currently any other basketball programs of that age currently going on within our community?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Are you aware of any? They have. And the one thing that for us, I know in our conversations, the middle school gym, Fred Douglass Gym, is close to proximity for a lot of these children that walk. They don't have
I was thinking
transportation.
Maybe Dan Sutherland Church of God that has that area there that he's trying to rent.
That gym's very small.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that would kind
Yep.
of be
Yeah.
right across the street from it.
That one's very small.
Other questions from council? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to permit a budget overrun of $7,346 to provide the increased insurance requirements and additional rental charges of the Seaford School District for use of the school gyms for 2022-2023 fall and winter programming as presented, and recommend that the department evaluate the feasibility of the alternative location as presented and choose the most cost-effective viable option going forward after this season.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Santos. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Santos.
Aye.
Councilman Henderson.
Aye.
Councilman Holland.
Aye.
Councilman McCoy.
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I will say the department is ready to go with registration information, so the community will see that go out tomorrow.
Okay, perfect, great, thanks. Next, we'll have Ms. Hickey come up and go over the ORPT grant funding for the privacy funds.
Good evening again. So I am applying once again for the state ORPT grant. It's the Outdoor Recreation Parks and Trails grant. What I'm going to do is just give you a very quick overview. The grant is for the sports complex, but there are 3 different sections of the sports complex that we were going to focus on this time around. Just up front, the total cost of this project is $72,000 in hopes that we will have a 75-25 split, with the state covering $54,000 match and the city providing $18,000 match. The first one that you see up there is an aerial. The map up to the left shows an aerial view of part of the sports complex. As you can see, the park is adjoined to at least 7 residential houses. The existing fence in yellow to the left is 4 foot high with no privacy slats, and the proposed fence would be the same type of fencing, but 6 foot high with black privacy slats to ensure safety and privacy for park patrons and our residents. And then just below is a picture of what that fence would look like, but with the privacy slats. The next one would be our football shed replacement. The pictures shown were taken in September. There is a concrete pad, but it's only in the front of the shed. The actual shed does not have a foundation, and as you can see, it has really affected the bottom of the entire building. Also, the bottom row, it's kind of hard to see in these pictures, but these are areas where the roof is beginning to leak, causing the wood to rot. The photo on the bottom right is an idea of what we would like to replace it with. The funds incorporated would also be to have a concrete pad poured for longevity of that football shed. This could also be an opportunity for us to partner with those that rent the field to give them a facility for concessions. Light concessions. And the last is our beloved Jay's Nest. The pictures shown were taken between March and May of this year, excuse me. From the photos, you can see the support joists are beginning to split underneath, or some of them have rotted, causing the bowing of the decking boards, as you can see in the top 3 pictures. And then in the top left is a red circle. That's the main entryway, and that's the only entryway into the park. The Parks Department tried to temporarily fix that by overlaying some plywood, but at this point, as a temporary fix, it's beyond a temporary fix, and we need to get that just completely taken out and removed. One thing I actually saw at the conference at the bottom right is an alternative solution. Rather than building up the entire decking boards, this was an idea that caught my attention. They are very thick. It's not just like a laid mat. They're very thick mats. If feasible, that could be an alternative solution that could be presented when the time comes after demolition. And that is all for the grant.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Hickey in regards to the grant? Councilman McCoy?
It's a question about the procedure. So you go through the application for the grants.
Yes.
You know, from your experience, when do you hear back? If people are going to ask specifically about Jay's Nest, if you guys get these, when will we start seeing the improvements?
So we should hope to hear back in November, December, whether our grant has been approved. And then that grant begins January 1, 2023, and it will extend through June 2024. And we would start those projects. Two of the projects are already budgeted for in hopes that we would receive the grant funding. So we would try to start getting on those immediately.
Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To piggyback off of what Councilman McCoy said about the Jay's Nest. So the repairs that we're doing is just this to the Jay's Nest?
What I would like to do is, this is the major renovation that we would do, is the entryway, but there are a few other areas that I would like to walk with, especially along with our parks coordinator, with a couple contractors to see. We do have some not miscellaneous funding, but funding that goes beyond for some of the supports. Some of the bases of the structures. I just want to make sure that if there is a way that, if there's anything structural that needs to be not changed, but renovated during that time frame, that we can go ahead and get that done while we have these grant funds.
Right, but shouldn't that be presented all at once? And the reason I'm asking, the Jay's Nest, in my opinion, is in need of some serious work, more than just that. Is there a cap on grant dollars that you're allowed to get? I mean, can you put a project
There is a cap.
saying, hey, we're going to do this, plus we're going to do this, and this, possibly, potentially. So is there a way to submit that and ask for more money, or is it just kind of locked off at a certain amount?
So specifically for this grant, there is a cap. But I'll be honest, I would like to not put $50,000 to $60,000 into this. The long-term goal is to completely replace it, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, that's my point, yeah.
But there's no details on that. There's nothing else kind of to be said for that, but that's just a long-term goal. This is just so that we are able to have a safe playground right now for the children.
And that was in my opinion, it's a point of demolish, kind of starting over. So if we go in and spend this money and fix this, like what kind of timeline does it look like potentially of like renovating that area?
Couple comments, and you're right on. Ms. Hickey has presented this in her capital improvement plans during budget for the last couple of years to basically replace the Jay's Nest. As council is aware, it was built in 2002. It is a wood structure. It has lasted well for us, and it's gotten a lot of use. But we have talked internally, there are large amounts of repairs that need to be made. The structures that we have placed in our parks since this was built, specifically for Optimus Park, has powder-coated metal structures they hold up very well. So some of the things we've talked about is, can we renovate this over a few years using the ORPT grant funds, matching funds for us. But we will come back with a plan during the next budget year so to kind of nail the edges down of that. You're right. We don't really need to put a lot more money. I think the superintendent is correct. We don't really need to put a lot more money on this because there's a larger problem here. And we really do need to come up with a comprehensive plan and a timeline to present to council.
And I think the people in our community deserve that. I mean, that park gets a lot of usage. And, and really when you walk through and look at it, it needs a lot of work. So my concern was putting this money and then coming back and tearing everything out and starting over.
And this is really a safety improvement, as I understand this now. It's kind of an emergency, but we are cognizant that we do need to do more, and I think you're right on that we do need to look at replacing large parts of this, demolishing sections of it, replacing it with a structure that will be more appropriate for the long control.
And I just want to add, like I said, if feasible, I still have to obviously get some quotes, but that bottom right structure, from what I learned about at the conference, that is something that once we replace it, we would have to get that contractor to come back in. It could be reusable if we do that new structure, just from my understanding.
Okay, are there any other, Councilman McCoy?
I could be completely wrong, but when we got together for our budget session this past year, we took a long-term vision. Wasn't that something we were looking at, like, down the line? We talked about it then, about the new playground?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
And Mayor, just for the record, I apologize. In your package is a resolution that has been prepared. Katie's laid it out exactly what this is for, but there is a resolution that will be approved with this motion tonight that the mayor will execute and
Yes.
send as part of our grant.
I was just going to remind everybody that this project, the Jay's Nest, was privately funded originally, right? The community came around and did that. Now the city, it's going to fall on the city to do it, and it's certainly, the price has changed since when it was done back then, but it certainly is well used. Yes, sir.
In planning for the future Jay's Nest, would you consider private
Yes.
private participation? Because in 2002, our company was delighted to sponsor a part of the playground. And actually, we were away on vacation and we asked to do it, so I wasn't able to put hands to it, but I would, gladly participate in something like that.
Yes.
Private.
This is, like I said, this is a long-term goal. This is 3 to 4 year goal. But in that goal, grants, matching funds, lots of meetings, planning sessions, to do that and really involve the community, because this was their project. And as we transition from this one to the next one, I intend to keep it that way for the future one as well.
Yeah, good. Councilman Santos?
Yeah. The names of the people that help are around the Jay's Nest, right? They're still. Is there a plan to reach out to them to see if they want to be part of the process again?
Originally there was a Friends of the Jay's Nest, and when the time comes to start planning and having those conversations, that committee specifically I will try to find their contact to see. I'm pretty sure those funds ran out years ago, but to see if anybody would be willing to participate again. I know I have a name plaque out there, but it's that they kind of organize that portion. And that's what kind of we would like to do again. Like I said, it's still going to be very community involved and based.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then I will accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Katie Hickey, to apply for outdoor recreation, parks and trails, ORPT, grant funding for privacy fencing, shed replacement, and playground repairs, and the Seaford Sports Complex as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
And Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much for your work on that, Ms. Hickey. Next, we have an update on the tree planting at Kiwanis Park.
So I'm just going to, this is just a quick overview from May through September of what is going on. In June and July, I do want to point out that there were several factors for the cause of death for the trees. There were 14 infected trees and 5 shrubs. The main cause, from what we found out, is due to chemical poisoning or an overusage of weed killer. But we also saw that trees had what's called girdling roots, which are roots that begin to circle at the base of the tree and eventually just suffocate it from the inside out. Another factor is mulching too close or on top of the base of the tree can also cause the roots to be suffocated over time, especially with the mulch added year after year, and that base not stay clear. So if you kind of pile it up, like if this is the trunk and you keep piling it up, it can suffocate those base roots. So there's no point of fact to essentially finger point towards anything, but these were the main causes. In August, we met with Delaware Forestry, and we were able to apply through them, an urban and community forestry grant program that we were eligible for the trees to be replaced at no cost to us. They provided a list of native tree species, and we chose a total of 6 varieties for the park. In addition, we chose 2 native varieties of shrubs that were to be planted. Originally, we were going to pay for those, but later on, they did tell me that they could cover the cost of those, which was very nice. And then September, the planting day, and I'll just kind of move along. This is just an overview of the plan, which I believe you guys may have seen last council meeting. Some of the trees did move based on utilities, irrigation. We went out and walked it. Also a special thanks to the electric department for helping remove all of those red X's and yellow X's. That was a big thing. But that is currently an aerial view of where the new trees are planted. And then we did have a community tree planting event, even though it was small. We had a total of 14 staff and community volunteers, Seaford High School FFA, and Susan Nancaro from the Kiwanis Club were both there. And I'll show you just a few pictures of what that looked like. Taryn Davis, she is the one that's down in the bottom right. She is the one with the forestry grant, and she has been a beacon throughout this, and she's also helped us with other trees. They also supplied the trees for some of the downtown trees that we've had to eliminate, as they have also died. So I think it was a total of 30 trees that were donated to us through the grant program. And then just quickly, I'm just going to show you what the trees in full growth, I attempted to do this, will look like and what type of trees they are. Obviously, red buds are not going to be in season purple when the honey locust, because that is a fall color, but I tried to be as adaptive as possible so you could visualize when these fully mature what they'll look like. So we'll start at Kiwanis Park, East End by the Veterans Memorial, and this is moving west, and then continuing west, and then finally by the monument. So hopefully, over the course of several years, we will be flourishing again. I tried to pick trees that were fairly fast growing, so we should anticipate growth between 1 to 3 feet per year.
Great job on that, and keeping us up to date. Yes, sir.
This came to light in May at the Memorial Day event.
Yes.
Does Parks and Recreation have enough tents to maybe put some tents up while these shade trees are growing for the elderly folks that were over there seeking shade but couldn't find any?
Yes, we do have a large 10 by 40 tent. It does take a bit of maintenance to put up, but it can hold, I'd say, about 90 people max underneath that if we set the chairs close enough. So between that, setting that up over the course of a couple years, as well as some pop-up tents, we should be able to accommodate.
Yeah, just in more than.
We'll need to communicate to that group that there will be shade out there so no one avoids not coming because of concern. We want to make sure that.
Especially Memorial Day weekend,
right.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you. And then you wanted to update us on your conference?
Yes.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Katie, the stumps, are they going to come back and grind those stumps out, or are they just going to leave them kind of flush to the ground?
I think that is something that we'll have to talk about. Some of those stumps that are out there, specifically 2 of those large trees, are larger than this podium. So it's something that they may have to, we may be able to spray a little bit right on top of them to help them decompose. And once that gets a little softer, we may be able to come in with a stump grinder. Some of the smaller ones we might be able to.
There's a lot of the older people in our community that they could, potentially be a trip hazard too. If they don't see that, the grass is kind of going off around them, so that's why I was curious if at some point are we going to come back and it's undecided at this point, or
We would, it's probably a long-term plan. It's not something that we're going to plan on doing immediately. I will say this, where most of the trees were taken down, either that stump is very visible because it's still probably a foot tall, if not a little bit larger, or there are plenty of mulch beds around, so if they do walk in the grass most of the time, I hope that they don't walk in the mulch beds. But there is mulch, so they shouldn't be in those walkways.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and an update on your conference.
Okay, I'm going to try to talk super fast. So, I attended the National Parks and Recreation Association Conference in Phoenix, Arizona in September. The theme was We Rise Up, and it stands for Surviving and Rising Through the COVID-19 Pandemic. The keynote speaker was Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and they spoke about the importance of outdoor recreation and thanked all Parks and Rec professionals who worked so hard to keep recreation available throughout the pandemic. Day one, I put as navigating because I navigated my way through the very large centers and exhibit hall, and I attended 6 seminars. So starting with identifying easy conservation strategies, what I'm going to do is I have one key fact that I learned that kind of stuck out to me for each of these seminars. So starting with identifying easy conservation strategies, small impacts to stormwater management, creating tree canopies, and planting for multi-usage can reduce heat, improve water quality, support wildlife, mitigate flooding, sequester carbon, and reduce erosion. In the next one, splash pads give a chance for multi-generational use, ADA accessibility, and they build confidence around people who may have a fear of water or swimming. The next bullet, it's important for municipalities and facilities to look for community sponsorship and fundraising opportunities to help offset the cost of registration and provide alternative programming such as arts, music, and crafts to allow children to not focus on just a winner-loser mentality. And then assessing the health of your Parks and Rec, being intentional about how we plan projects and programs to suit the needs of the community is a key factor. And then in order to stand out when applying for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a very, very large grant, you must tell a story but utilize public support, have detailed numbers, and a focused plan. And it's good to have a state representative. That was out of all the sessions that day, that was the most beneficial. And I am hopeful that maybe one day we can apply for those grants. It's a very large program, but he said don't be afraid of it, so I'm not going to be afraid of it. Day two was exploring. I explored more around the exhibit hall for specific products that I thought could benefit our community, and I attended 6 seminars. You can see some of the things there. I'd like to note that the bottom left-hand corner, that is the booth where I saw that mat for the Jay's Nest, and would like to implement it hopefully into those grant funds. Key points, we were given the idea to create a teen council and have them help create events either specifically geared towards them or incorporate elements for them with existing events. The next one is Wonders of a Resilient Mind. Is to be effective in advocating, you must be in a growth mindset, be persistent, and record data to keep track of the needs of the department. And then when designing a playground, you design for the developmental needs of the whole child. Out of 1,000 children, 85 of them have some type of disability, from physical to cognitive, which really stood out to me. And then succession planning. Unfortunately, I was really excited about this, but it was based on much larger municipalities. But it did give an idea to create an elective program to offer leadership trainings and personal development opportunities for employees to participate in. And then our final day was connecting. And those are just, what's listed are just some extras that I was able to participate in. I did elect to go to the Desert Botanical Gardens, which was very, very beautiful and very neat to see that come to life. But everything else was provided by the conference, which was very exciting. And what was cool was I met people from Canada all the way to Mexico. So top left, that's my new Canadian friend, Christy. And then on the top right is my friend from Mexico. The conference seminars are available until November 30th, so I plan to download as much content as possible for some of the seminars I wasn't able to get to. Last but not least, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to go. It was very refreshing and resourceful to talk with other Parks and Rec professionals throughout these couple days.
I tell you, we appreciate you taking the time to be away from your family, and when you can come back with a good idea and implement it, then you know you've invested your time well, and it sounds like you've got some great ideas already, so that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Good job, Peter.
Okay, do we have any old business?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, reminder of meetings.
Okay, so we have a few this month. National Fire Prevention Week is this week, October 9th through October 15th. As mentioned earlier, the 100th birthday celebration for Frederick Douglass Elementary School, October 15th, 10 to 2. Nanny Coke Senior Center 50th anniversary celebration, October 15th at 4:30 p.m. Just a note here, RSVPs were due October 1st. Friday Night Live is Friday, October 21st, 5 p.m. to 8, High and Spring Streets. And then the Halloween Parade is Wednesday, October 26th. Lineup is at 6 p.m. It's at Cedar Avenue and High Street. Step off is at 7 p.m. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Always like to remind people that in Seaford, the Halloween trick-or-treating is on Halloween, so always, so 6 to 8, so just so people know the hours. Okay, go to committee reports, Administration IT, Councilman Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The meetings that were attended by city staff they met with a sign vendor at Kiwanis Park regarding potential signage upgrades. They attended the meeting regarding an 800 megahertz radio replacement and upgrades. They attended the SCAT meeting. They attended a Seaford night out at the police department. Danny Short's coffee meeting. They attended a utility coordinating meeting for a project at the Ross Business Park. They coordinated roof repairs at the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department. They attended the bid opening for the vacuum excavator. They attended the SCAT breakfast meeting, which I attended that one as well. And I have to say that was very well attended. We had community leaders from around Sussex County. We got to walk around and show them all the improvements that have been going on around the city of Seaford. They revised the police department radio tower lease with the state of Delaware, sent to department heads for review. For the IT report, they worked on IT issues as a result of the generator failure on October 2nd. They rescheduled the fiber splicing work due to the storm. Gary attended a week-long cybersecurity defense training, and they migrated the email migration to Office 365 over the weekend. For the administration report, they're preparing for the fiscal year 2022 audit. They distributed pension statements to general employees. They're preparing for IBW certification election, and all their business is routine.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Police Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a report from Chief John Wilson. To date, there were 769 calls for an average of 2.7 calls per day in the fire department. There were 83 calls in September for an average of 2.7. And so far this month, there's 26 calls for an average of 2.3. EMS statistics, there's been for 2022 in a total of 3,040 calls for an average of 10.6 per day. September calls were 350 for an average of 11.6. And in October to date, 101 calls for an average of 9.1. Moving on, there's a number of significant incidents, including on 929, there was a structure fire on 14 North Front Street at the former Manuel building. Pardon me. The roof fire was contained to the back roof area. On 930, there was a fire in the laundromat on the highway, which was confined to the fire itself. And there were a number of vehicle accidents with and without injuries. And there was one assist for a structure fire on Basic Lane where there was an extensive fire and that was police. All apparatus are currently in service. Tower 87 is back in service after its testing. And the next training is October 19th, Delaware State Fire School in Georgetown, inside the burn building. EMS, new hires are underway with the field training process on shift work. It's all doing well. And the 2023 ambulance permit renewal process will be submitted this week. It's completed. It's completed and sent to the fire chief's office for approval. There's news and events. Fire Prevention Week is ongoing. They were St. John's Preschool on October 4th and 5th. And a total of 64 children were at the fire station. On October 6th, SCBA all the apparatus was certified and tested by third-party vendor. The fire department assisted Seaford Police with the police night out, also on the 6th. And on the 8th, the fire department was at Lowe's for the first responder day for the display and fire apparatus. On the 12th, that's tomorrow, Fire Prevention Day at Seaford. I want to welcome the students from West Seaford to the station, and that starts tomorrow. And finally, with the fire department, I want to congratulate Chief Wilson. He will be installed as the Sussex County Fire Association president at Blaze Fire Hall on October 25th. And I want to say congratulations. It is an honor, but he also has my sympathies because it's a lot of work. So congratulations to him. Seaford Fire Department, Chief Kraft has submitted his reports with a total number of complaints for 2022 year to date at 7333. You can see the distribution of crimes down to the top. You'll see under criminal, you'll see the distribution of 193 crimes, and you'll see their distribution with an 84% clearance rate. Remains above average. Moving down to drug complaints, we have a total of 25 drug complaints, and you'll see the distribution on the chart there. They were all adult arrests. Under traffic, there are 269 traffic contacts, resulting in 63 citations and 18 warnings, 1 DUI, 31 crashes in this period, and 2 injury accidents. The one that previously the fire department responded to on Locust at Shipping Street, which required extrication but no treatment, and there's no one on Front Street. North of Third Street. And that did not require extrication. 6 hit-and-run accidents. Fortunately, none of them were bicycle, motorcycle, or pedestrian, or one alcohol-related crash. See a number of significant incidents. The last one I'll just call your attention to that there has been some concentration put on the Wilkes Arms, including some memorandum of understanding with them to try to curb some of the incidents that are happening. But there were 5 incidents at Wilkes Arms during this reporting period, consisting of suspicious persons, disorderly conduct, indecent exposure, and false statement to a law enforcement officer. And they all happened from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So that the wide distribution of crime is not one specific time of day. Seems like criminals don't start very early. They wait till the sun's warm and then move on into the night. So you'll see a number of administration activities and events that they participated in. It was a busy week for the fire department. They had an open house at the high school where SRO Wingate attended. Seaford Night Out was on the 6th, and they were joined by many organizations, the fire department, Delaware State Police, DelDOT, Sussex County EOC, Seaford School District, Boys and Girls Club, Naval JROTC, and many more. I did mention DelDOT. DelDOT did have a program out there. They unfortunately did not have their full complement of their display, but due to the illness, I think, they were represented. On October 8th, Seaford PD notified the Seaford partner to host the first National Faith and Blue event at Outer Park. And on all accounts, the kids that did attend had a great time with the graphic displays and video games, interacting with the officers. So that was great. Under training, we have an officer that attended the legal update training at Delaware State Troop 3, and that was Detective Sergeant Mills. 9:26 to 9:30, active attack, integrated response for law enforcement and EMS integrated care. Training was given out, and that was the Deputy Chief and Sergeant Lindsay. That was multi-jurisdictional. There was a lot of jurisdictions attended this training, and you'll see more and more of this training happening. And finally, I would like to thank the Chief for arranging the virtual demonstration for the Police Chiefs Advisory Board meeting, where they demonstrated the virtual program, and we're hoping to be able to demonstrate it to the council and prior to an upcoming meeting, and that way you can see just how valuable a training this really is. And I'd especially like to thank Frankie Bradley and Toby Darian for their participation and their expertise in the demonstration. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have Code, Parks and Rec, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have issued 345 permits that have been issued so far this year. Rental license, it has 1,652 issued, and we are busily doing rental inspections and violation inspections throughout the city. And Military Ridge, first 2 buildings are nearly complete. And the Coastal Kids Dentistry work is near completion, and all of the work is routine. And I'll switch over to Code, Parks and Recs, I'm sorry. Okay, they have prep fields for youth soccer, flag football, mini softball, and football field rentals. They made repairs to football shed and irrigation repairs at Quan's Park, and did prep for the Seaford PD and Ulster House Park events on 10/6 and 10/7. And they coordinated pictures and makeup games due to inclement weather for soccer. And they have submitted, which you already know, the 2022 ORPT grant funding for a privacy fence, football shed replacement, and repairs to the J nest. And they are beginning to prep for 2020 trick-or-treats, and all the work is routine. That completes my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we have electric. Councilman Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last report, the crew have dug in the conduit and installed the anchors for street lights in the WSBC. They also energized a meter at 428 North Street. They energized 2 meters at 51 Fallon Drive, Coastal Dentistry. They also tested the Christmas lights for the upcoming season. In regards to our director, had his standard director's meeting, council liaison meeting, and staff meeting. And attended a meeting in Dover concerning the CDL license. Over the course of the upcoming weeks, Nick Moore will attend week 7 of 8 for lineman school. Dylan Calloway will be attending week 1 of the lineman class at DMEC, put on by the TDPPA. And they will continue working in Bel Air multifamily. On a more somber note, I was made aware yesterday morning, like many of you were, about the passing of Ben Sermon. As you knew, Mr. Ben, really great guy, did a lot for this area, for our schools and this community. Really, it is, I knew him through athletics. I grew up in athletics, and Ben was always big in athletics. He started in Bridgeville and came to Seaford. Great coach, great athletic director, but a really kind and really good man. Last few years, I really enjoyed hearing Ben talk about his grandchildren and how he was so excited about their accomplishments on the court, on the field, and off the court, and off the field as well. But in the last couple of days, all I've heard from people is Ben was a legend. Sermon was a legend. I heard that over and over again, and truly great man, and he'll definitely be missed. That's my report.
Great C40. And finally, we have wastewater treatment and public works. Councilman King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights from each department, starting with the Public Works Department. Maintenance was performed on the leaf machine in preparation for the upcoming season. The Route 13 main project is complete, and the South Conwell project is almost complete. The team continues to paint curbs, and they assisted in the Secret Night Out event. Jumping over to the wastewater treatment facility, all is going well. Plant performance remains good. Work continues at the Virginia Commons lift station. Here's a couple of the projects that will be happening over the next few weeks. Continue to paint the curbs, keep the plant up and running with 0 violations, perform maintenance as needed. They have to investigate an alarm issue on IR pump number 4. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all. It was a busy week for everybody here at the city. Lots going on, and next week looks to be about the same. So appreciate all the hard work everybody's doing. With that, I will accept a motion to go into executive session at 8:27.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Holland seconds. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you.